Well, hello, and welcome to the devotion today for 1 Samuel chapter 14. Kind of a challenge because it's such a long chapter and to try to do a sort of a short devotion in this time. So I'm going to sort of hit some highlights. As the chapter starts off, we find that Jonathan is saying to his armor bearer, hey, let's go over to the uncircumcised Philistines and see what may happen. So obviously they're in battle with the Philistines, and we see as we go on through the story that Israel's kind of hiding in the rocks and everything, so there's a certain amount of fear. And it's interesting that one of the reasons they demanded a king is because they wanted somebody to lead them into battle. Well, right now they're not being led into battle, they're hiding away. But with this, when he says this to the one who bore his armor, it says, but he goes on and says he did not tell his father. Now, we could just skim over that. But Jonathan, we see his character in Scripture and the man he becomes, and what a man of character he is. And he's old enough to go out into war. And there's some reason he did not tell his father. He's grown up with his father. And I'm just, anyway, I don't want to read too much into it, but it's just interesting that he did not tell his father. And so he goes over there, and we learn that he says, come, let us go to the garrison of the uncircumcised, if it may be that the Lord will work for us. For nothing restrains the Lord from saving by many or by few. When I think about church life today, it seems like the mentality of the American church is bigger and better. The bigger the better. Well, I want to say to you today, God uses one individual. God uses one family. God uses what we call small churches. Listen, the Lord is the majority. And when we hook ourselves up with the Lord, then the Lord is able to use us. And we need to quit saying we can't do something because we're only this big or because I have this personality. Jonathan had it right. For nothing restrains the Lord from saving by many or by few. And so the Pharisees saw and said, look, when Jonathan came out, look, they're coming out of their hiding. They're coming out of hiding. So, they don't have any fear of the Israelites. And so as we read the story, we understand that Jonathan and his armor bearer, they win battles and things are happening. And some of the Israelites begin to come out in war and beat the Philistines because under Jonathan's leadership, they're not afraid because he has led the way and he has shown the power of God. But then we go all the way over to verse 24, and there is just this amazing thing that I think, again, shows something about the character of Saul, who they wanted to lead them. The men of Israel were distressed that day, for Saul had placed the people under oath, saying, cursed is the man who eats any food until evening before I have taken vengeance on my enemies. So none of the people tasted any food. Well, you know what? Saul wasn't the one who started this deal. It was Jonathan, who I believe was led by the Spirit of God. And because of what he did, there was a great victory being won by the Israelite people. And now King Saul wants to jump on, and I've got to make vengeance on all my enemies. And it's I don't know where he came up with this thing. But obviously it was not a thing of God. Nobody is to eat anything until this is all over. Well, Jonathan wasn't around. He didn't hear that. And he's out there and he eats some honey, okay? And as the story unfolds, it becomes known that Jonathan ate this honey. I won't go through the whole process of it and things like that, but he refreshed himself. And when it came down to being known, here's Saul. Jonathan told him, let me see, verse 43, then Saul said to Jonathan, "Tell me, what have you done?" Jonathan told him and said, "I only tasted a little honey with the end of the rod that was in my hand." And the reason he did it, he didn't know anything about it. And then he said, "So now I must die?" With emphasis. Saul answered, "God do so and more also, for you shall surely die." I think that gives us an indication of why Jonathan didn't tell his dad what he was doing. Perhaps he saw some instability in him. And they have won this great victory. And now Saul is willing to put his son to death because he disobeyed a command of his that he didn't even hear. Well, thank God we know that Jonathan did not die. The people rose up in his defense, and he was saved, and he would later become one of King David's greatest defenders, even understanding that while he should have been heir to the throne, no, actually God had called David to be the heir of the throne. You know what? Leaders are like everybody else. We make mistakes. We have clay feet. But it's important as leaders that we're willing to let other people speak into our lives. And it is important that we have people. You know, that armor bearer, man, he had Jonathan's back. He had Jonathan's back. And we all need people to have our backs. But sometimes having our backs doesn't mean that people just go along with everything we want to do. It can mean, and please hear this, because I did a devotion about people getting so upset when anybody speaks correction into their lives. Every one of us needs correction spoken into our lives. Sometimes people having our back means they're willing to say to us, "Hey, this isn't right. You need to correct past." God bless you. Have a great day.